Rhineland, Germany, April 1945. 60 seconds to mob justice. The village square smells of ash and rotting plaster. Smoke curls from roofless walls like prayers no one will answer. Lieutenant James Avery steps through the rubble, his Lee-Enfield rifle slung low, boots crunching over glass that was once a baker's window, a schoolroom, someone's Sunday morning. Then he sees her, a woman, nurse's uniform torn at the shoulder, mud-streaked and bloodied, tied to a wooden post in the center of the square. Above her head, a hand-painted sign in brutal block letters, Veracrine, traitor. The crowd around her is small but seething, 20 villagers, maybe 30, old men in threadbare coats, women with hollow cheeks, a child kicking gravel, someone spits. The sound lands wet on stone. Avery feels the weight of the moment before he understands it. The rifle in his hands, the uniform that marks him as liberator and enemy both. The woman's head bowed but breathing. 60 seconds, that's all he has before someone in that crowd decides waiting is worse than guilt. He is not supposed to be here. His section was tasked with securing the eastern checkpoint, clear the roads, mark the mines, let the village sort itself out. But a woman's cry pulled him in, sharp, sudden, cut short by a hand or a fist. Avery motions to Corporal Doris, hold position, safety's on, no shots. He steps into the square alone. The crowd turns. An old man in a stained Homburg steps forward, gesturing at the woman like she is evidence, exhibit, proof. She helped your men. She gave them water while our boys bled. She is a traitor. Avery's heartbeat is a drum in his throat. He has stood in burning houses and felt calmer. This is different. This is a village trying to cauterize its shame by burning the wound. He looks at the woman. Her wrists are raw where the rope bites. Her face bruised, violet and gray, but her eyes, when they lift to meet him, are not pleading. They are exhausted, resigned. What happens next will test the thinnest line in war, the one between justice and murder, between orders and conscience, between the man you were taught to be and the man war demands you become. If you're watching from anywhere in the world, this is the kind of story that doesn't make the official histories. Hit that subscribe button, because every week we uncover the moral crucibles that defined not just the war, but what it means to choose humanity when the world is choosing something else. Avery does not raise his rifle. He plants it instead, but a cobblestone, like a state claiming ground. Halt. One word, German, clipped clean as a parade command. The crowd hesitates, not from fear, but from the sudden friction of interrupted momentum. They were a river. Now they are water pooling, uncertain which way to flow. The old man in the Homburg recovers first. His voice climbs, indignant, rehearsed. This does not concern you, Herr Offizier. This is German justice. Our village, our traitor. Your village is now British jurisdiction, Avery replies, his German stiff but deliberate, each word placed like a chess piece. And I see no justice here, only a rope and a crowd. A younger man pushes forward, mid-30s, face gaunt, one sleeve pinned empty at the shoulder, a veteran. The kind who carries war in his bones and rage in his marrow. She gave water to your men, he spits, jabbing his remaining hand toward the woman. While my brother died 3 streets away, choking on his own blood, she was washing British wounds, bandaging British hands. She chose them over us. Avery lets the silence sit, counts 3 breaths. Then, what is her name? The question lands like a wrench in gears. What? The one-armed man blinks. Her name, Avery repeats, slower now, letting the formalities settle like frost. If you are executing her for treason, you must know her name, her rank, her unit, the specific charges. Show me the court-martial documentation. Show me the Feld gendarmerie order. Show me anything that says this is law and not a lynching. The old man sputters. We do not need papers to know betrayal. Then you do not have justice. You have revenge. Avery's voice hardens, a blade finding its edge. And revenge is not yours to take, not anymore. A woman's voice rises from the back, roar ragged with grief. She let them live. The soldiers who bombed our children, who burned our homes, she saved them. Avery turns toward the voice, finds a mother perhaps, or a widow, someone hollowed out by loss and looking for a shape to fill the void. Did she pull the triggers? He asks, softer now, but no less firm. Did she load the bombers? Did she give the orders? She gave them mercy, the woman chokes out, while we had none. Then she was a nurse, Avery says simply, doing what nurses do. Veteran, someone shouts from the crowd's edge. Traitor. The word like a stone thrown. Others pick it up. A chant half-hearted, but gaining heat. The mob trying to remember why it gathered, trying to reconvince itself. Avery sees it then, the ringleader, not the old man, not the veteran. A younger man, late 20s, standing 3 rows back. Expensive coat despite the ruin, clean-shaven, eyes cold and calculating. The kind of man who doesn't throw stones himself but knows exactly when to point at the target. This one didn't lose family. This one lost standing, lost something the war took from him, and he needs someone to pay. Here, offizier, the ringleader says smoothly, stepping forward with a politician's ease. We understand your position, but you must understand ours. This woman defied orders. She stayed behind when we were told to evacuate. She aided enemy combatants. These are facts. The sentence has been decided. Decided by whom? Avery asks, meeting the man's gaze directly. By the people she betrayed. Then the people have no authority. Avery's words drop like a gavel. I do. The ringleader smiles, thin, cold. You are one man here, Lieutenant, with a section of tired soldiers in a village that does not want you here. You cannot police every corner, every street, every moment we reclaim what is ours. It is a threat wrapped in courtesy, a calculation presented as fact. Avery feels Corporal Doors shift at the square's edge, sees the subtle repositioning of his section, trained, disciplined, reading the temperature drop. He takes one step forward, then another, close enough now that the ringleader can see the mud on his uniform, the days without sleep in his eyes, the war that has made him older than 26. You are correct, Avery says quietly, in English now, letting the foreignness of it assert itself. Then, switching back to German, I am one man, but I am the man with a rifle and the authority of His Majesty's armed forces. And if you touch her again, you will learn exactly how much one man can do when he decides the law matters more than the mob. The ringleader's smile falters. Avery pivots, addressing the crowd now, his voice carrying. This woman is under British protective custody. Any attempt to harm her will be considered an act of aggression against Allied forces and will be met accordingly. If you have charges, you will submit them in writing to military government. If you have evidence, you will present it to a proper tribunal. Until then, she is not yours. The old man tries once more, voice shaking. But she, I know what she did, Avery interrupts, though he doesn't, not yet. And I know what you want to do, but wanting is not the same as being right, and being angry is not the same as being just. He turns to the post. The woman's eyes track him, exhausted, wary, waiting for the next cruelty. Fräulein, he says, voice low enough that only she hears. I am Lieutenant Avery, British Army. I'm going to cut the rope now. Do you understand? She nods, barely, a movement small as a prayer. Avery draws his knife. The blade catches the gray light, reflects nothing back. The rope is cheap hemp, frayed at the edges, tied with the kind of knot you learn for tethering animals. It parts under pressure, falls away like a spell breaking. The woman collapses forward. Avery catches her, his arm around her shoulders, steadying her weight against his chest. She weighs almost nothing. War has rationed even the substance of bodies. S is for bye, he murmurs. It's over. Her breath shudders against his uniform. Behind him, the crowd does not cheer, does not riot. It simply disperses, slowly, reluctantly, like smoke losing its shape. The ringleader melts back into the rubble. The old man spits once more and turns away. The mother with the ragged voice covers her face and weeps. Corporal Doors appears at Avery's elbow. Sir, ambulance is 2 minutes out. Good. Avery shifts his grip, lifts the woman fully, cradles her like something breakable, which she is, which they all are. As he carries her across the square toward the waiting section, he feels it, the cost of choosing. His hands are steady, his orders were clear. But something inside him has shifted, the weight redistributed. The war was never impersonal, but it had been distant, a thing of maps and objectives, movements and missions. Now it is this, a woman's pulse against his forearm, a village's hatred in his wake, a choice made not because it was ordered, but because it was necessary. He has crossed a line he cannot uncross. And when the ambulance arrives, olive drab, Red Cross painted bright on the canvas, he hands her over to the medics with the careful precision of someone passing a lit candle in the dark. Take her to the aid station, he tells the driver. Protective custody. No visitors without my clearance. The driver nods. Professional. Understood, sir. Avery steps back, watches the ambulance pull away, tires grinding gravel and ash. The square is empty now, except for his section. The post stands alone. The sign still nailed above. Veretrine. Doze clears his throat. Orders, sir. Os, sir. Avery looks at the post for a long moment. Then he reaches up, wrenches the sign free with both hands. The wood splinters, the nails shriek. He drops it to the ground, lets it lie there, face down in the mud. We move out in 10, he says. Check the perimeter. Mark this square secure. And the woman, sir? Avery turns, looks at his corporal. Dors has been with him since Normandy, seen every kind of hell, never asked a question that wasn't necessary. The woman, Avery says slowly, is no longer their problem. She's ours. The field hospital tent smells of canvas, iodine, and the particular staleness of air that has cycled through too many lungs. Avery sits on an overturned crate beside the cot, watching the woman sleep. She has been unconscious for 4 hours. The medic, a Scotsman named MacLeod with hands like a watchmaker, has catalogued her injuries with clinical precision. 2 cracked ribs, severe dehydration, contusions mapping her back like a failed geography lesson, rope burns encircling both wrists. She'll wake, MacLeod said. Body's just demanding the rest it's owed. Now, as dusk bleeds through the tent canvas, she stirs. Her eyes open slowly, focusing on nothing, then everything. She sees the IV line first, then the British field dressing on her shoulder, then Avery. She doesn't flinch, just watches him with the careful neutrality of someone who has learned not to expect kindness. Wasser, she whispers. Water. Avery reaches for the canteen MacLeod left, holds it to her lips. She drinks like someone who has forgotten the shape of mercy. Small sips, hesitant, as if the water might be rescinded. Thank you, she says in German, then switches to heavily accented English. You are the officer from the square. Lieutenant Avery. He sets the canteen down. You're safe here, under British protection. She almost laughs. The sound catches in her throat, becomes a cough. Safe. Yes, I have heard this word before. What's your name? A pause, as if even this simple fact might be dangerous. Liza, she says finally. Liza Hartmann. I was a nurse. Kriegs Lazarette Sector West, Rhineland Front. Was, I think, she says quietly. I am not a nurse anymore, only a traitor. Avery leans forward. Tell me what happened. From the beginning. She tells it slowly, in fragments, like someone assembling a broken mirror. The hospital was a repurposed schoolhouse, she says. 20 beds that became 40, then 60, then bodies on the floor because there was nowhere else to put them. 3 doctors, 8 nurses, dwindling supplies that turn medicine into mathematics. Who gets the morphine? Who gets the bandage? Who gets to die slower? February was when it started to collapse. The front didn't retreat, it dissolved. One day they had supply lines, the next they had rumors. German units mixed with stragglers, deserters, boys in uniforms 3 sizes too large who looked at the nurses like they were ghosts. The order came in March, Lisa says, her voice flat with exhaustion. Evacuate, fall back, leave the ones who cannot walk. Avery knows this order, has read the intelligence reports. The Wehrmacht in full collapse, discipline fraying, officers executing their own men for refusing suicidal stands. We were supposed to leave them. Her eyes find his. 32 men, some German, some not. We had British prisoners, Americans, even a Russian, all bleeding the same, all needing hands that knew how to close wounds instead of opening them. She stayed. 3 nurses stayed. The doctors fled. We boil bandages in rainwater, she says, use snaps when the ether ran out. I held a boy's hand while he died, German boy, maybe 17. He called me Mutty, mother. I was 23. The detail lands like shrapnel. The stink of infection, the sound of shattered morphine vials swept into corners, the way gangrene smells like earth and rot together. She describes amputations by candlelight, a British sergeant who sang hymns through his fever, a Luftwaffe pilot who sketched birds on the walls with charcoal from the stove. Then your men came, she says, a patrol, lost, looking for their unit. One was wounded, shrapnel in his shoulder, bleeding badly, red hair, freckles, like a child. Avery listens, does not interrupt, lets her build the testimony brick by brick. His name was Thomas, Tommy. He made jokes even while I dug metal from his flesh. Asked if I had a sister. She smiles faintly at the memory. I told him I had 3 brothers, all dead now. He cried, not from pain, from that. The British patrol stayed 2 days, long enough for Tommy's fever to break, long enough for the other wounded to see that the enemy wore the same exhaustion they did. One of your soldiers, older man, corporal, he shared his chocolate, real chocolate. I had not tasted it in 2 years. He gave it to the German boys too, said, "War's done, lads. Might as well be human before we go back to killing each other." When the patrol left, they offered to take her. She refused. Someone had to stay. But someone saw, a villager, a Feld gendarmerie officer, or someone claiming to be one, in a war where authority was whatever uniform you could scavenge. He called it treason, Lisa says, her voice hardening, aiding the enemy, consulting with occupiers, betraying the Reich. The real betrayal, Avery thinks, was expecting her to choose nation over mercy. They came at night, she continues, dragged me from the hospital, the wounded, those who could still move. They tried to stop it. A boy with one leg stood between me and the soldiers. They beat him unconscious. She was tied to the post at dawn, the sign painted while she watched. They told me I would hang at sunset as an example, so others would know the price of kindness. Her voice fractures on the last word. She turns her face away, toward the tent wall, where shadows flicker like the ghosts of flames. Avery sits in the silence that follows. Outside, the camp settles into evening routine. Mess tins clanging, voices trading cigarettes and rumors, the distant cough of an engine. He thinks about the war they teach at Sandhurst, the clean one, with clear enemies and clearer orders. Then he thinks about the war he has lived, the one where a German nurse saving a British soldier becomes a capital crime. In the last months, he says quietly, speaking as much to himself as to her, we have seen things fall apart, not just armies, people. The rules we thought were iron turned out to be smoke. He has seen reprisal killings, civilians shot for hiding deserters, soldiers hanged for refusing to defend ruins. A world where mercy became heresy and survival demanded you choose between your humanity and your life. Lisa looks back at him. Her eyes are dry now. Exhaustion has burned through the tears. What happens to me now? She asks. You stay here, Avery says, under protection. I'll make sure the record states you acted as a medical professional under impossible conditions. No charges, no trial, no more signs. And when you leave, it is the question he has been avoiding. Then you will have papers that say the British Army vouches for your character. It may not be enough, but it is what I can give. She nods slowly, accepts this fragile promise. Thank you, Lieutenant Avery, she says, for the water, for the words, for standing in the square when you did not have to. I did have to, he replies. I just didn't know it until I saw the rope. British 2nd Army Headquarters, Temporary Command Post, Rhineland Sector. April 17th, 1945. Major Clifton sits behind a field desk that has seen better wars. Maps curl at the edges. A cigarette burns forgotten in a tin ashtray. He reads Avery's incident report for the 3rd time, lips pressed thin. Lieutenant, his voice is sand and gravel. Walk me through your decision tree. Avery stands at attention, cap under his arm, uniform still carrying yesterday's mud. Sir, I encountered a civilian detained without proper authority. I assessed the situation as extrajudicial punishment and intervened per Article 27 of the Geneva Convention regarding. I know the bloody convention, Avery. Clifton drops the report. What I don't know is why you thought it was your job to play magistrate in a German village square. With respect, sir, I was preventing murder. You are exceeding your authority. Clifton leans back, chair groaning. Your orders were checkpoint security, not social work, not playing savior to every sub-story in a nurse's uniform. The words land like a slap. Avery keeps his face neutral, parade ground blank. She wasn't a sub-story, sir. She was a prisoner about to be executed by a mob. A German prisoner, in a German village, dealing with German justice, or injustice if you prefer, not your got-up problem. Silence fills the space between them, heavy as smoke. Clifton sighs, suddenly older. Listen, James, I understand the impulse. God knows I do. But we're not here to referee every score they want to settle. We're here to secure ground, establish order, and move east. The minute you start caring about every rope and post, you stop being a soldier and start being, what, sir? A liability. The word sits between them like unexploded ordnance. Permission to speak freely, sir. Clifton waves a hand. You're already waist-deep. Might as well wade in. If we ignore civilians being murdered in our jurisdiction, we're not establishing order. We're sanctioning chaos. We become complicit in the very barbarism we're supposed to be ending. Careful, Lieutenant. That sounds dangerously close to philosophy. We don't pay you to philosophize. We pay you to follow orders. My orders, Avery says quietly, include upholding the laws of war, even when it's inconvenient. Clifton studies him for a long moment, then reaches for his cigarette, finds it cold, lights another. You know what your problem is, Avery? You still think war has rules. From Lieutenant James Avery's personal diary, April 17, 1945. Mother would say I'm making things complicated again. She always said I thought too much, that thinking was a luxury soldiers couldn't afford. Maybe she was right, but I keep seeing the rope, the sign, the woman's face when I cut her free, the way she folded, like something held together by will alone. Clifton asked me why I intervened. I gave him the official answer, Geneva Convention, proper authority, legal duty. But the truth is simpler and more damning. I intervened because if I hadn't, I would have become the kind of man who walks past a lynching. I would have become the kind of man who lets convenience murder conscience. Is that philosophy, or is that just being human? Avery writes at a borrowed desk in the officer's mess, cup of tea gone cold beside him. Around him, the machinery of war continues. Radio chatter, boots on duckboards, someone arguing about fuel allocations. He thinks about his brother. David died at Dunkirk, shot while covering a retreat that saved 30 men. Posthumous commendation, a medal sent to their mother in a box she never opened. David believed in duty above all, duty above doubt, above fear, above the small voice that asks why. Avery enlisted 3 months later, tried to fill the space his brother left. Tried to be the kind of soldier David was, certain, unwavering, faithful to orders as if orders were gospel. But war teaches you things training doesn't. It teaches you that orders come from men, and men are fallible. It teaches you that duty can be a suicide pact if you're not careful. It teaches you that sometimes the most important thing you can do is say no. David never learned that. David died believing. Avery is still trying to figure out what he believes in. The chaos of post-liberation Europe sprawls beyond the command post like a fever dream. Villages police themselves with rope and rumor. Civilians take revenge on collaborators, real and imagined. Women are shaved, beaten, paraded through streets. Men are shot in ditches for crimes as vague as gum, working with them, or as specific as being seen. The Allies try to impose order, but order is a fiction in a world where the rules dissolved months ago. Military government issues proclamations, villagers ignore them, soldiers patrol streets, the revenge happens at night. Avery has seen it. In the last weeks alone, a French woman stoned for sleeping with a German, a Dutch mayor hanged for requisitioning food, a Belgian priest beaten for sheltering deserters. Justice as catharsis, punishment as purge. And the soldiers caught between. Do you intervene? Do you let it happen? Do you draw the line? Or do you acknowledge the line is already ashes? Mercy is not mission, Clifton said. But what is the mission? if not to prevent the world from devouring itself. British 2nd Army HQ. Later that evening, Clifton finds Avery smoking outside the mess tent, watching the sky darken over the shattered landscape. "You're not in trouble," the major says without preamble. "Officially, the report will note your actions as within acceptable discretion given fluid circumstances. You'll get no commendation, but no reprimand either." "Thank you, sir." "Don't thank me. I'm still not sure you were right." Clifton lights his own cigarette, exhales slowly. "But I'm not sure you were wrong either, and that bothers me more than I care to admit." They stand in silence, two men watching the same war from different angles. "Can I ask you something, sir? If I say no, will it stop you? Did you ever wonder if we're the traitors?" Clifton turns, eyebrow raised. "Explain." "We swore oaths to fight barbarism, to defend civilization, to uphold certain principles. But how often do we ignore those principles because enforcing them is inconvenient? How often do we look away because looking costs too much?" "Every day," Clifton says quietly. "Every single day." "Then who are we loyal to, sir? Really?" The major considers this. Ashes fall from his cigarette like snow. "I think," he says finally, "we're loyal to the idea that someday, when this is over, we might still recognize ourselves in the mirror. That's the best I can offer you, Lieutenant. The rest is just surviving until we get there." He grinds out his cigarette, turns to leave, then pauses. "The nurse, Lisa, what happens to her?" "She stays under British protection. I've arranged transfer to a DP camp with proper documentation. After that," Avery shrugs, "after that, she's a German woman, in a Germany that may not forgive her for being kind." "So you saved her for what, 6 months? A year?" "I saved her for 1 day," Avery says, "the day she was about to die. That's all any of us can do." Clifton nods slowly. "Maybe that's enough." "Maybe," Avery echoes, "or maybe it's just what we tell ourselves so we can sleep." The major walks away, boots crunching gravel. Avery finishes his cigarette, watching embers fall like small surrenders. Above, stars emerge through the smoke, indifferent, eternal, watching a world that eats itself and calls it justice. Tomorrow he will return to duty, will clear roads, secure checkpoints, follow orders. But tonight he is a man who cut a rope and wonders if compassion is of obedience, or if obedience without compassion is the greater betrayal. April the 23rd, 1945. British DP Processing Center, Rhineland. The paperwork takes longer than the rescue. Lisa Hartman sits across from a clerk who types with 2 fingers, hunting and pecking through her testimony. Name, age, occupation, circumstances of detention, reason for British intervention. The clerk asks if she has family. She says no. He asks if she has a destination. She says no. He stamps 3 forms, files them in a folder that joins hundreds of others in a canvas bag destined for an archive that may never be opened. Next, the clerk calls. Lisa stands, holding a paper that says she is a displaced person under Allied protection. It does not say she is innocent. It does not say she was right. It says only that she exists, and that for now, that is enough. Avery watches from the doorway. She sees him, nods once, acknowledgement, not gratitude. Gratitude implies debt. What passed between them in that square was something else. Something without a name in any language he knows. "Where will you go?" he asks. "West," she says, "away from the ruins. Perhaps to family I hope still breathe, perhaps to no one. It does not matter. I am alive, which means I must continue being alive. If you need anything, you have given what you could, Lieutenant." Her voice is gentle, final. The rest is mine to carry. She walks away, folding herself into the river of refugees that flows west like water finding its level. Avery watches until she disappears into the crowd, another story the war will swallow and never fully digest. He wonders if he will remember her face in 10 years, 20, or if she will become just another moment in a war built of moments, important when it happened, inevitable when it's over. Avery returns to the square before his unit moves out. Dawnlight cuts through the ruins, painting everything the color of old bone. The post still stands, though someone has tried to burn it. The wood is charred at the base, black tongue marks licking upward. But it did not fall. It remains, defiant or indifferent, it's hard to say. The sign lies face down in the mud where he dropped it. Rain has softened the letters. Veratharin, the paint bleeding into the grain, the accusation dissolving into abstraction. Avery kneels, turns it over, stares at the word that meant death, now just wood and weather. He thinks about burning it, about smashing it, about carrying it back to headquarters as evidence of something, though evidence of what he cannot name. Instead, he leaves it there, half buried, fading. Some things should be remembered, some things should be forgotten. Most things exist in the terrible space between. In the final months of World War II, Europe dissolved into a chaos that history textbooks struggled to capture. The liberation was not clean, it was not simple, it was a reckoning that came in waves, each one exposing new layers of guilt, new categories of victim, new impossible questions about who deserved mercy and who deserved judgment. Between April and August 1945, Allied forces documented over 10,000 cases of reprisal killings across occupied Germany. Civilians accused of collaboration, deserters executed by their own retreating armies, women punished for loving the wrong uniform. The numbers are estimates. Most deaths left no paperwork, no witness, no grave. Military hospitals and field stations became sanctuaries for those caught between vengeance and law. Nurses like Lisa Hartmann, German, French, Dutch, Italian, who treated wounded regardless of flag, found themselves branded traitors by communities desperate to assign blame for their suffering. The International Red Cross recorded 847 such cases in Germany alone. Most received no recognition. Some received punishment. A handful, like Lisa, received the one thing rarer than mercy in those days, a second chance. Lieutenant James Avery was one of thousands of Allied officers tasked with policing the collapse. They cleared mines, secured roads, and made impossible decisions about when to intervene in the rage of villages that had earned their rage honestly. Some looked away, some drew lines. All of them carried the weight of choices made in moments too fast for certainty, too important for doubt. The post-war trials, Nuremberg and beyond, would establish frameworks for justice. But before the frameworks, there were only men and women standing in ruined squares, asking themselves what humanity meant when the world had forgotten. Avery writes to his mother from a requisitioned house in what used to be a German officer's quarters. The furniture is gone, looted or burned. Only the wallpaper remains, floral patterns faded by sun and smoke. Dear Mother, I cannot tell you much about where I am or what I do. The censors would cut my words to confetti. But I can tell you this. The war you read about in newspapers is not the war we live. The war you read about has clear sides. The one we live has only shades of gray, each one darker than the last. I think of David often, wonder what he would have done in my place. He always knew the right answer, or seemed to. He had a certainty I envy and distrust in equal measure. I am learning that certainty is a luxury, perhaps the only luxury war truly denies us. I will come home different than I left. I do not know if this is forgiveness I ask or warning I give, perhaps both. Your son, James Lisa Hartmann, survived the war, worked in a British hospital for displaced persons, emigrated to Canada in 1947, married a teacher, raised 2 children who never quite understood why their mother flinched at raised voices, why she kept bandages in every room, why she volunteered at hospitals until arthritis took her hands. She died in 1983, and her obituary mentioned nothing of the post, the rope, or the sign. It mentioned only that she was kind. James Avery remained in the Army until 1948, rose to captain. Declined to stay for career, opened a bookshop in Kent, where he sold second-hand histories and drank tea with customers who wanted to talk about anything except the war. He never wrote about the square, never spoke of it except once, to a nephew studying philosophy, who asked what he learned in the war. That loyalty, Avery said slowly, is not to flags or orders or even countries. Loyalty, in the end, is to the human being standing in front of you. Everything else is just noise we make to justify looking away. The nephew didn't understand, not then, but you bit. But he would. The sign said traitor, but the greater betrayal would have been to walk away, in a world fracturing into sides, into us and them, into who deserves mercy and who deserves rope. The most radical act is the simplest, to see a person and refuse to unsee them. To stand in the space between cruelty and crowd and say, not this, not today, not while I'm breathing. Avery and Letha were not heroes. They were people who, for one moment, chose differently, chose life when death was easier, chose mercy when vengeance was expected, chose humanity when the world demanded they choose sides. The war taught a million lessons, tactics and strategy, logistics and loss. But the only lesson that matters is this: when the rope is ready and the crowd is certain and the sign proclaims guilt without trial, someone must cut the rope, someone must question the sign, someone must remember that the person tied to the post is still a person. That is not heroism, that is not philosophy, that is loyalty to the only thing worth being loyal to, the idea that being human means more than surviving. It means choosing, in the moments that matter, to see each other clearly, and then to act as if that seeing demands something of us, because it does. If this story made you think differently about loyalty, mercy, or the choices we make when the world asks us to look away, share it. These stories matter not because they're history, but because they're human. And humanity, in the end, is the only side worth taking. Thank you for watching.